CSSify with this string. I will give you the right CSS version. Things like that will also be converted. I can also, I have it here. So you will see things like crazy long XPath that are horrendous. Things like this div with a class of blah, and inside I want this link with the ID of blah, and then inside I want it to have a child that is an image that contains this in the source. And it will actually do a pretty good job converting it. I know it because I wrote it. So we will just give you the CSS. Around that, I was also planning to do some Python script that would import all your Celanese tests and fix them for you in a second. That would also be a pretty cool idea. I just don't have the time to do it. It's also full of tests. So if you want to check out the code, it's just a lot of regular expressions that are ugly. And then this is all the tests that it does. Testing on things like if you try this, it will fail, but then it will. So if you find something that fails, just go to the repo, clone it, and write the test for it here. If the test fails, that means that we know about it and we will eventually fix it in the future. So all I do is just CSSify-t, and that will throw no errors. Now if I open it and do something like change this, and it should say M3, which probably won't do, hoping it won't do. It will give me, oh, there's a failure there. I expected 4, and it told me. I expected 3, and it told me 4. So it's a cool tool to have. If you want to batch convert your tests, this may be the first place to go. If it can parse your XPath, we all know that XPath can be super crazy, have a lot of stuff in them. I didn't go after the whole thing because I knew I was not going to make it. I just went with the simple, and I think this is the MVP. What else? So Firebug, of course, if you don't have Firebug yet, you definitely should. It's the same thing as in Chrome. It's the Chrome dev tools and Firebug is the best way to write a good locator. You gotta understand the DOM. If you don't want to dedicate your time to it, you should. You gotta understand what's going on inside the DOM tree, because that's what Selenium looks at, and that's what Selenium understands. So if I want to click in this element, let's say, I will just right-click on it and do inspect element. It's the same thing in Firefox. You'll get a pointer to the right spot in the tree. So I'll do it in Firefox, because Firebug is way better. And when we'll see less headquarters. So again, all I gotta do is just go to the element I want, right click. Slowness. There you go. Stop it. So again, all I gotta do is just go to the element. I will see the tree. I can go to its parent, open and close it, understand the whole tree so that I can find the right locator, the most robust, the cleanest. Don't trust on bots. Don't trust on Selenium IDE recorded locator. It is smart, but it's definitely not better than a human being seeing the DOM, figuring out what's the best strategy in this case. So if you're going to be like, oh, my devs are never going to change the IDs, so I will trust in IDs. Or my devs are changing IDs all the time in classes, so I should just trust in the parent of this element, or whatever. You really have way more knowledge than what a bot would have of your elements, so you definitely want to trust in yourself first, and then in bots. If I would have to tell you what I do every day, if I want to create a test case, I will first go to Firefox. And I'm embarrassed to say this, I use the IDE all the time, even though I don't advise it. I will just go to the page, open the IDE, record. So for example, going to go to google.com. Look for Santi. That's all I do every night. Find it. I'll be #1 eventually. I don't even have a website actually. So whatever, go there in the class, right click and do something like assert the text. Oh, you'll notice that there's a CSS there. That was me. So you will record the whole thing. That's what I do all the time. I just record the super basics. And then, of course, I do options, format, Python, because that's what I like. And I just have the Python test. I copy only these few lines, because Selenium IDE gives me the basic locators. And it saves me a lot of time instead of going through the DOM for every single element. I will eventually find that maybe this locator is a little bit too long or may not be maintainable, so I will improve that one. But at least I get the basics, and it saves me like half an hour of just doing the manual process, even though the purists will tell you not to. And another great thing I found, which actually led me to write this Selenium IDE CSS parsing, is Selector Gadget. This is a pretty cool tool. Let me see if I can. All right, so Selector Gadget is like a bookmark thing that you always have. It's just a bookmark that you add to your bookmarks. And when you open it, it will bring up, let me see if I have it. I probably do. Selector Gadget. There you go. So now it brought up this thing. And every time I hover in an element, it will allow me to select it. So I will do beautiful stuff. And in the bottom, you will see, oh, you can't see that. Sorry about it. Let me try to fix it. There you go. So in the bottom, we'll give you the right selector to find that element. In this case, it didn't work. But for example,
click on one of the yellow ones.
Yellow ones?
When you click on something.
Oh, it puts a.
So click on a link and then click on the yellow ones. It'll start to eliminate those.
So now you have a path that matches everything that's yellow. Click on one that you don't want.
Oh, smart. We've used this in the past. So it will start going down the tree if you want to perfect this. So it's between this and Selenium IDE. I generally like to try Selenium IDE more because I know that Selenium IDE is using exactly the same libraries that Selenium RC uses. So I just go with that. But this is pretty smart too if you just want to do something quick or if you want to confirm that there's no better locators. Again, always look at the DOM, always use tools like Firebug or Chrome developer tools. All right, let's go for questions and then that would be it.
You said Selenium IDE and Selenium RC use the same
Locating library.
strategy, but I wrote a short CSS selector using regex. The Selenium IDE can recognize that component when I keep the same thing in the script. When I run with the Selenium RC, the script is failing.
So the question is, you said that IDE and RC use the same strategy. They use the same inner libraries to find the elements. But when I did Selenium IDE, it recorded it for me. I added regexes inside the contains. And then when I write it in RC, it fails.
Selenium IDE didn't record it. I manually wrote
Oh, okay. You wrote it, and it works in IDE.
Yeah.
It fails in RC.
I kept in the value and you click on the check, so it will locate on the page with a green color box. On the IDE, that means IDE is able to recognize that element with that kind of CSS selector.
All right. So yeah, my guess would be you're using an old version of Selenium RC that is not using Cecil inside it. Adding Cecil to the CSS as the CSS parsing engine was done actually not too long ago. It was actually like a week before I wrote that blog post. I would say 6 months from now, 8 months ago. Jason Huggins actually made that change, and it was one of the last changes that we did to Selenium 1. Nowadays, every dev is working on Selenium 2. But if you have Selenium RC 1.0.3, or Sauce RC, which is kind of our wrapper on Selenium RC, that has Selenium 1.0.3. So Cecil locators will not work.
I'm using the IDE that you posted on your blog.
Right. So the IDE is the latest version. The IDE is using Cecil. RC, if you're using an old one, if Cecil locators work in IDE and they don't work in RC, I'm tempted to say it's always going to be an old version of RC. But if that's not the case, I'll definitely bring it up in the dev list or somewhere else.
So where I can get the latest version of RC? Like it's now in the website, it's Selenium 2 if I want to download it.
Yeah, you gotta get that one, Selenium 2. The Selenium 2 jar even though it says Selenium 2 and you want to run Selenium 1 test, that jar is magic. It has both Selenium 2 server running and Selenium 1 server. So if you start it, it will do all this stuff, and if you throw WebDriver test to it, it will run them, and if you throw Selenium 1 test to it, it will just work. So just get the 2.0 jar and use it as always. Just start it with java.jar, and it will be a regular RC.
Is there any different performance between, for the same element, having long CSS selectors or XPath selectors versus short one?
That's a good question. The question is if there's a big difference between having a long XPath or CSS locator and a short one. I didn't get to test it extensively because I had to put some boundaries in what I wanted to test because I didn't have enough time. My guess is yes, because what Selenium has to do is first parse the whole XPath or the whole CSS, and then do the whole navigation and logic behind it. If you only give it one element, it will parse that and act on it clearly. If you give 10 nested, it will probably take a while to first parse it and then do the filtering in different levels. I would have to test it, but I've seen crazy tests that take like 95 seconds to find an element. That's a lot of time. In IE. No, in Firefox it's always fast. In Firefox it's almost like if you only code for Firefox and you really like XPath, I don't know how you do it, but you should, yeah, you can stick to it if you want to. My advice is always CSS, mostly because of the readability and all this knowledge base that is already built around CSS. All the web development world, everyone doing style sheets and everyone doing jQuery stuff know about CSS. And when they see an XPath, they're going to be like, what is this thing?
The reason I ask is because if we have a longer CSS selector or XPath selector, it's more precisely what the element that I want. Versus I don't know what can be loaded on pages. If we have similar modules, we might have similar classes.